that they do is called WonderCon, and WonderCon does not have an art show. The Comic Fest that's a separate organization that focuses just on like paper comics, doesn't have an art show. Atlanta's Dragon Con has a big art show. There's always a waiting list for that one. This year we might have one, but art shows are going. They're hard to run. You know, a lot of little sniggly stuff to do, and it's all volunteer.
Is it the same organization that travels around the country?
No. Comic-Con International owns the trademark now for Comic-Con, because somebody commercial was going to try to trademark it, even though Comic-Con had been doing it for almost 50 years at the time, and they had to go to court over it. And they said, no, it's ours. You know, you want to use it? You know, let us know. We'll give you permission for it, but you can't trademark it. You know, so Dragon Con is another, it's run the same way. It's a fan-based con, science fiction. The two science fiction cons that were here in San Diego have closed down. So we don't have those anymore. And most of the other cons seem to be for-profit commercial things. Star Trek has one. Disney has one. I forget what else. But those are all for-profits. So, Comic-Con is nonprofit with a very large budget.
Must be nice.
Well, I mean, they spend it because it's not cheap renting the convention center.
Can I ask how much a booth is there?
Okay, art show is separate. It's nonprofit, so it's pretty much enough to cover the rent on the hotel ballroom. And broken down, it's $40 per space this time, which is $5 more than it's been for the last 20 years or something. But
wow,
the space is a 4x4 panel. It's pegboard. Or well, now it's a 6 foot by 24 inch table. Used to be 30-inch table. Or a floor space that will fit into how they set up the tables. They'll just take the table out. You can have that floor space.
But $40?
Yeah.
That's so cheap.
Yeah, but not for the size of the space.
And you can do
well, even for the size of the space, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And there's no commission on sales. You don't have to be there for it. It stays up from it. The art show opens on Thursday, goes through Sunday. So
you don't have to be for there, so your work is secured somehow.
Yeah. There's the alarm doors. There's security guards, and they're there during the day as well as walking around at night. They take mail in.
They what?
Way to get rid of old inventory.
They ask that it be within their themes and no adult content. And nothing that
for that they have the dirty show.
Well, some of the vendors have that inside the main thing, and the vendor prices are much higher. And this year, for the first time, they started charging for what they call Artist Alley. Prior to that, that was free to people working in the industry. It's a 6 foot table with like 2 feet behind it, set up in rows. But they were free inside the main floor. But this year, I think they said they're charging like 300 and something. So there's a lot of empty ones this time instead of a waiting list. Any guests for the panels that Comic Con invites get a free table. And nonprofits that want a table, there's a special area for those, and those are free. So,
Sounds like a very generous organization.
well, it's nonprofit, and their mission is to support the popular arts.
Hmm.
This year, a lot of groups dropped out of stuff because of the writers' strike, Hollywood writers' strike.
All right.
SAG and I forget the name of the other union are supporting, the actors unions.
Right.
So that takes care of a lot of panels. But it's going on. And there's also a street fair going on at the same time that the city sponsors. So to get tables out there, it's through the city. I don't know, again, what they're charging. But lots of extra police presence and security guard presence. And for the last several years, the Marines have been there.
Ah.
Security.
So they just happen to be there anyway, right?
Well, they do it as a community volunteer type thing. They don't wear their
Mhm, yeah.
uniforms. They wear whatever security uniforms, whatever group they're with that year.
Right. But their base is right around there somewhere. Is that right?
Pendleton is the big one.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so
That's
the
right.
recruit station. So they
Mhm.
can be from any of those.
Uh-huh.
But they are professional looking. They're what you think security should look like.
Uh-huh. Like you don't want to mess with them.
Well, no, it's just they're very, they stand up straight, they're clean shaven, short hair, definitely in shape, and they're very polite. It's not like, it's over there, go over there. No, you can't walk there, go over there.
No color.
The other ones they hire.
Hello.
So all the security organizations in towns hire temps for the Comic-Con. And some of them, they're not exactly somebody you would think should be in charge of, security.
Right.
Bellies hanging over the belts and, just not seeming like they quite understand what they're doing. Like I said, the Marines, they stand up straight, and they're not getting paid. What would be their pay goes to their Marine Corps ball. So set that up, which is an annual event for them. But their commandant lets them take the time off to do that as a community outreach type thing. I mean, if something happened and they get called up, yeah, they're not going to be there, but they're there otherwise.
So, Allison, you getting ready for Cherry Creek?
Oh, yes. I feel like it's final exams this, the last couple days. I mean, it's close. It's only a 5.5-hour drive, so that's really nice.
That is close.
But there's some things I just want to get done before the show, and even though I have a ton of work.
It's not this weekend, it's next week, right?
Yeah, no, it's this coming weekend.
Oh, it's this coming weekend.
Yeah, July, but it's Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Okay.
But July 4th is on Tuesday.
Right.
So there's no way around that. Yeah, so we're gonna actually head up on Thursday, and we're staying with someone. So at least it's good to give myself a deadline to leave, because then I can actually just relax a little before the chaos of the show. So because it's been pretty nonstop. And jewelry is always a pain in the neck to make anyway.
Amen.
Yeah.
Allison, are you gonna come back on the 4th, or are you gonna take that day off?
We'll probably drive back on the 4th. And then I have I'm doing a couple of the local artist markets in the middle of July, but then when I leave in August, I'm not going to be home until mid-September. And I was contemplating flying home between shows, and I would have probably 4 days aside from travel to work in the studio. And even if I have things in process, someone said to me, well, how many pieces can you actually get done? And so if I had things in process, I could probably get maybe 3 pair of earrings done. And it's just not really worth it, the hassle, of flying. And but instead I can go visit some friends and relax a little bit. And so
you're going to be gone for 6 weeks? And Eric can't go.
Well, he's going to fly home after Sun Valley. And then we've got some friends we're going to visit after Sun Valley since we'll be in the area. But then he'll fly home and he starts his orientation for school on August 18th. And I'm going to go hang out by a pool in Sonoma and visit a friend who lives on the coast, another in Sonoma, and just chill.
Oh, tough life. What's the next one after?
Oh yeah, and then Bend. And
okay.
So from Sonoma, it's like 7 hours and 40 minutes to Bend, and it's a really pretty drive. So I'm gonna drive up there, and then Portland, which is only like 3 hours. And then instead of driving to St. Louis, I'm going to drive home. So it's 20 hours to drive home. So it's 2 days. St. Louis would be 3 days of a lot of driving by myself. Normally Eric and I switch. So I'm going to drive home, and then I'll fly to St. Louis. And Eric will fly also, but he has to take a later flight because of class. And then I was worried about St. Louis. If I drive there, we would have had to have left Sunday night to drive like 2 hours and then drive the rest of the day since he has class on Tuesday. But if we fly on Monday, then we don't have to get a particularly early flight, and we could just fly home. And so that's what I've decided to do. And it'll give me like 2 days really pushing will be okay, but 3, I think I'd be so blitzed for the show. And that's the thing, I don't want to be worn out before the show, because St. Louis is a hard show to do, long hours, and it could be really hot. And so and that show I really wanted Eric to help me with, because I need help selling. There needs to be 2 of us. And with him, I don't have to explain anything. And I can go to sit in the back of the tent for a half hour and stare into space. And I know that he'll call me if you need, that kind of thing. So anyway, I extended my hotel for the Sunday night, and I feel relieved not to have to leave Sunday after a show, because it really is, it's nice to just be able to go back and rest and, have some wine and pizza.
Well, one of my favorite pictures from Ann Arbor from the last time I did it is of me sitting behind my booth with a fan on me, looking like I'm totally done in, but I was over it by then. But yeah, it's just to get away from the people and the
right.
Yeah,
just having that kind of just quiet time. One thing I liked at Milwaukee is our tents. There were tents facing out in opposite directions, and we had the space behind it that we shared. So one row of tents was facing, let's say, east, the other was facing west, and then behind it we had like 5 feet of space all the way down. And so it was just artists back there, and nobody could walk back there. So it was, I enjoyed eating my lunch there, and I didn't have to talk to anyone, and just to get that little bit of downtime.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
But anyway, then I'm concerned about stock. I've been working. I've never had so much stock before. Look, if I'm at a show, I don't think people realize, you have the choice here. But I even have a whole nother Tupperware for backup earrings. And usually I just have like 3 Tupperwares. Now I have 4. And so, it'll be what it is. I mean, if I sell showpieces, if I sell, at each show, a couple of showpieces, which would be great because then they'd be great shows, then I'd still have plenty of stock of the other stuff. So, we'll see how it pans out.
I'm impressed you have that much inventory
Well,
because yeah, jewelry is very time consuming.
right. And when I get back, I still have another 4 weeks. And so there's certain designs I'm trying to make sure, like my simple pot earrings that I have a lot of with different colored stones. But, I still have some showpieces that I'm going to finish up too. And so I definitely have a nice selection.
That's good.
Yeah.
Ron, what have you been doing?
Reminding myself why I don't like art shows as much as I used to.
Oh,
They're just so many artists that in the shows that I'm in right now are all experiencing the same thing as the shows that we're at and the crowds that we're experiencing. They're not willing to spend for larger pieces of anything. So jewelers, ceramic artists, painters, down the line, and you can sit in your booth all day and just not see anything go by of note. And you're just like, and then also on top of that, there's been a couple shows that have got new management, and they're just taking such huge steps backwards in proficiency and everything else. It's just shocking how like I've never seen before.
Did you do Boston Mills?
Coming up this weekend.
Oh, okay.
How was the
Because-
June the last week? How was it?
I think it was okay for people, from what I've read. But there was customers have commented on the fact that they used to get a postcard reminding them of the show, and there was no postcard this year.
Which is
There was no
interesting
social
considering
media.
there was no show last year, right?
Well, it's been gone for 3 years, 4
Right,
years.
Yeah.
so they should have blasted the public with postcards.
Yep. And
Yeah.
no social media.
No?
That's so
Presents.
pathetic.
No artist list that I could find or that my friends could find. And usually they're good about all that.
There's no excuse for no social media because, I mean, it's a free site on Facebook.
Well,
Yeah.
it depends though, I think, because from what I understand, so much of social media depends on your ability to identify who your customer is and the characteristics or quality that you use to build that customer base with. Just putting it out there, it's like somebody said once they had 3,000 Instagram followers, but the question is, how many of those people buy from you? And the answer was none. So just having social media out there to bring people to the event that aren't going to buy any art, I don't think gets the event or the artist or the show any further down the road than they are.
So
They
what
need-
you do is you link it to the artist link to you. And, that builds it. Then they send their stuff out as well to
Right.
their, contacts.
Well, but I
It
think
really works very, very well if done right.
if done right.
Right.
Yes,
And then
there's
there's also online ads and that whole geofencing,
Yep.
which would advertise to people who are in your region. I mean, yeah, it definitely, social media is not in a vacuum. I mean, yeah, you can't just put something on there. And like I was telling our the open studio tour people, they keep posting. First of all, it's all text. You need to put images in social media. And anytime I post and tag them, they're supposed to at least share it. Or I've noticed other shows are doing that. And I've explained to them. So in other words, you can't just keep posting something and hoping people show up, as someone just said, you know, you have to have other people respond to it's this whole active type of venue. I mean, it doesn't just exist if you just post, and I think that's what is not
Also,
being taken advantage of.
you post a link to it on other sites that are related to what you're doing.
But how do you, and Frank, you probably know this better than most, because I think you work with Facebook quite a bit, don't you? Social
I
media,
don't work with Facebook that much.
okay. Because it seems like like any business in America, regardless of what their service or what their product is, you have to identify who your customer is that's going to walk through that door, which for the show is walk into the show. And if you can't define them, then all the promotional stuff you send out is going to have such a minor, potentially such a minor response to it. Whereas if you can identify, okay, what do potters need? What do jewelers need? What do artists, fiber artists need? What do woodworkers need? What do photographers need? What do all that? We have our customer base has characteristics to it. Plus, there's all that database out there of people that own businesses that need artwork. There are restaurants. There's doctors' offices, dentist offices, hospitals, all these kinds of people. And then there's all the diversity of designers that work with companies like that they don't even know in most cases that we exist or that our artwork exists. But if they could be told about it and brought to the event, I think it would make such a huge difference for a whole lot of us as artists. But if you've done shows in Florida, you know what it is to have bodies and not buyers, and it doesn't mean anything. You can have 50,000 people come to the event, and if 48,000 of them just walk by booths and don't look and don't interact with the art, they're worthless to the art show.
Right.
So I think
qualified buyers. That's what we need.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Which means I think the term that I've heard used is defining your avatar of who your customer base is. And I think all businesses face that. Otherwise,
Well, but there's an awful lot of people who are selling snake oil without defining avatars. It's, it's really easy to concoct a script for what your avatar is, but in reality, you have no idea. There are people who would be interested in your work who work on car assembly lines, and there are people who would be interested in your work who are lawyers, and the car assembly line people may not be able to afford you unless they're getting a lot of overtime, but they might still be interested.
Wait, they make more money than
Lawyers.
yeah.
Well, some of
But
them
you know
do,
what?
yeah, but
The thing is, if people
Fair
are
enough.
interested, I don't know. I mean, we have to sell our work. I mean, so
the starting point seems to be like, for example, Allison, do you take emails from your customers?
both email and snail mail.
Okay. And I take emails from my customers. So I think to the extent that I understand how Facebook is working, that helps starting to define my customer base, because these are people that whatever their demographics are, wherever they live, whatever their interests are, that they bought my artwork. So they're patrons of my work. Now, I need to somehow learn how to take that information and use it to grow it more. But that's not an easy task, I don't think. Not that I've ever heard.
Well, you could
Ron,
link to your Facebook page in your email.
But still, if they're not interested, you're going to have those 3,000 Instagram followers and no buyers. In which case, what has that done for you?
That's you're sending email to a group of people that
Are interested.
were interested. So
Right.
put the link to
Yeah.
But how do I get new buyers? How do I get new people interested that haven't seen my work?
Bring a
then
friend.
their friends will see it too if they say something to you.
But for example, if I have 1,000 people on my email list, and I'm going to go do a show like Boston Mills, how many of my customer base are actually anywhere close to Boston Mills, as opposed to Texas, as opposed to state of Washington, as opposed to any other state where they're so far away, Boston Mills is irrelevant to them. So that
Well,
cuts-
Well,
Wait,
excuse
Don't
me.
you split them? I don't
Okay.
send to absolutely everybody.
I
I-
do.
I give,
I do.
I send to them. I send to them if they have bought from me at that show before, or if they bought from me somewhere else, but they're somewhat in that area.
You
Yeah.
need
I
Sometimes
actually
a
send,
zip
I send
code.
to my, I send to my entire list snail mail of all my summer shows. And I send out, let's say, so I send out an email to my entire list once a month anyway. And so I'll send all of my shows. And, you know, I've seen people who, I remember this woman that I met at Park City in maybe 2000, I don't know, 11, showed up in maybe 2006. It was like 5 years later, and she showed up at a show in Pasadena. And I have had that where people show up at different places because you just never know. And the second email I send, though, might be just to the little regional. Like if I send out the big email and then a supporting email. But I find that people move around. I mean, I know people who, I mean, they're visiting, let's say in Denver, they're visiting relatives and they time it for the art festival, but they live in Boston. I've had that too. So
I certainly have planned travel around art shows.
have what?
Yeah. So you were going to ask me something, Frank. What was it?
No, I mean, there are two things. When you're collecting an email address, are you noting what show you got it at? And one, and two, you can ask them for their zip code at the same time. They don't have to give it to you, but if you've got a booklet for people to sign up, you can ask them for a little more information so that you would have their home zip code. If you can see that if their home zip code is near where they bought, then that's one thing. If their home zip code is 1,000 miles away, then it's another. So then you have
But they might have they might have several houses, so they might use their local address.
Well, this is true. True, but you know, we're talking about prudent, relatively easy things to do that make it easier to segment your email list and market it and email appropriately. You're not going to get it perfect no matter how much money you spend, and you can spend disproportionately. But if you're just making sure that you know that somebody gave you their email in Ohio, then you make sure you send to everybody who has an Ohio indicator when you're going to Ohio show, you know, or a show anywhere near there.
Along with email addresses, you need to get zip codes.
Yes, zip codes.
So, and you could
I get the snail mail address as well.
If
So
they'll-
that I
Well,
can
certainly if
send,
anybody buys from you online, and I hope you all have I hope most of you have e-commerce websites at this point, because you never know. You know, somebody who's bought your work in a show might buy your work from your website too, if you let them know there's new things on the website. Court, you're shaking your head that you wouldn't do it, or it's not going to happen.
It doesn't work. It's never worked for me. I've had no sales that way. I end up taking my store down, and a lot of it has to do with type of artwork that you sell.
True.
And the type of artwork that you sell is a huge deal when it comes to online sales.
I would agree. And
Allison?
even at shows, I would agree that's
Allison, you know, Allison can put photos of her jewelry, and you know, it's
but I mostly sell it in person, or
Yeah,
if somebody is
just-
buying, if
just go with me,
All right.
Allison. Okay.
all right.
You know, somebody else that comes to mind is John and Pat Hecker and their boxes. You know, they're brilliantly colored. You look at them, you see it. It's what you're going to get. You know, Allison can put photos online, and it's going to be very representative of her work. I put my work online, and you know, my sell prints that I put a lot of time and effort into the prints. I have a tremendous amount of detail, fine detail in the prints, a tremendous amount of tonal detail in the prints. You know, that you can see when you look at a 16 by 20 or 20 by 24 print hanging on the wall. You can't see shit on a computer screen. That stuff all goes away. That's the stuff that sells my work. And when you can't see it on a computer screen, my work doesn't sell.
Court, I hear you. I understand you. It makes sense what you're telling me. I wouldn't dream of arguing with you, but you are not everybody, and some people are selling very successfully online.
That's correct. And it depends on their artwork. I've talked to other artists that have artwork that translates really well online and they do well. I've talked to other artists who, like myself, have a lot of subtle detail in their work, color, subtle shadings, things like that, that don't sell well online. And it has to do with the artwork, the type of artwork and the colors and everything else in it.
I'm sure you're absolutely right. On the other hand, you have some chance of selling to somebody who's already bought your work online that you wouldn't have to a person who's never bought your work, because they can look at something online and they can project into it what they already know about you.
Right. And I would agree with that. But I think
For me, and for a lot of photographers and a lot of, with the exception of some painters that have collectors that are really into their work, for a lot of 2D artists, we don't see the same kind of repeat sales that, let's say, jewelers see.
Or ceramic artists.
Ceramic artists. Yeah, yeah. You know, if it's a small something I can put on a shelf, yeah, I'm going to have repeat sales. If it's jewelry that I can wear and I can put, you know, in a little drawer, I can put hundreds of pieces of jewelry. Yeah, I only have a finite. Most people only have finite, you know, amount of wall space, and it's difficult.
And I think one of the things too, when we, like we're talking about, when they've seen our work at a show, it's easier for them absolutely to go online because they're familiar with the detail that you have in your work. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you feel differently. I think for a lot of us, we'd rather bring them, once they've bought from us, rather bring them to my website to purchase, because when you send them to an art show to see you, they're going to see a whole lot of other artists and they're going to have to make choices. So are they going to be so dedicated, they're going to walk directly to my booth and buy my work, or they're going to pass 9 other photographers and go like, oh, well, look at this work here. This might look really well. And I think also that some of us that do larger 2-dimensional pieces, our customer base is different because a lot of times they're filling a space or 2 spaces with big work, and they often are bigger sales. But it's not like a jeweler, ceramic artist, a fiber artist, where they might buy lots of the work. Would you agree?
Yeah.
You want my
Okay, but Ron, you talked about selling to interior designers, for example.
Yeah.
If you can cultivate a few interior designers, they are potentially repeat customers, and they don't necessarily have to see the work. You know, if they understand your work well enough, they don't necessarily have to see a new piece in person to decide that it might be a good investment.
No, and I agree. And I've sold to interior designers, and I love selling to interior designers because they're often multiple pieces, big spaces. But my investing time in working with an interior designer is challenging because they often are not as broad-based as I wish they were. They may have a few clients, and then they struggle with getting more work, more clients, building their base. And I may only be part of what they want, which is fine, because 1 or 2 big sales with an interior design person, it's great. But I wish there's a lot of interior design people out there, I think, that don't even know art shows exist. There's a lot of and working with both private individuals, but also businesses.
Well, you know, have you ever checked out whether you could exhibit in a convention of interior designers?
No, I haven't. Do they even exist?
There are conventions of interior designers, and I don't know definitively, but I would imagine that there are people who have work for sale like you who would exhibit it there.
There
It
are
might be a lot more
also
expensive than an art show, but
there are also interior design centers, like for example in New York and LA, and they're a what'd you call it? Like this base where interior designers go to look at and buy work. I know a ceramic artist who sells her work that way. And it's, you know, they're always buying multiple pieces because there are these groupings of ceramics in that case. But you know, I would imagine every big city has some sort of interior design center, and I don't know how that business works. But Chicago, I'm sure, has one also.
Certainly the
They're
major
buying-
cities do.
They're buying multiple pieces because they're displayed together in a grouping.
Ron, do you
want
know
my-
John
My
Kennington?
2 cents.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I do.
Okay. John did a home show in Tulsa. He lives in Tulsa. He did a home show in Tulsa. Now, it was expensive. It was a few $1,000s, but he got a big booth. He set up a couch, he set up some walls, and hung his work. And even though it was expensive, he sold a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And that was at a home show. You know, every decent sized city has some kind of home show or remodeling show or something like that once a year. And that's what he did.
I'll
So-
look into that because in the old days I did do, I think, 2 interior home shows, and neither of them were well structured or well run or produced much work. But that's a good suggestion. I'll look into it. And the same with you, Frank, to look into. There's interior design home shows where that would be viable to spend the money to be seen.
You know, if there's something like that, you know, if you're talking to interior designers, making sure you get their email addresses and their zip codes, and even if they don't sell, even if they don't buy from you there, you want to be letting them know that you've got new work. You want to be letting them know that you're going to be somewhere where they can come see you, because they're potentially multiple buys. And
Right.
and once they bought from you, they're much more likely to buy without seeing it in person.
But doesn't then what we're saying play into the concept that shows need to look at this too? Because if shows reach out into all the communities around where they live, like last week I was at Quincy. Within a few hours drive of Quincy is Des Moines, Iowa, one of the top shows in the country. St. Louis, one of the top shows in the country. Springfield, Old Capitol, Peoria, Illinois, Columbia, all with art shows. Not to mention what's in Chicago. That by reaching out to those communities, and just on this one point, interior designers, that they could offer and bring to bear and start getting as support interior designers, because they would come see a lot of art they are never going to see any other way other than at an art show, and finding work that they've never seen before, and maybe their clients will go like, oh, our clients might really like that, so let's connect with these artists.
Well, maybe we should start a consultancy to art fairs about marketing and how to outreach to different communities.
But again, with
I know.
Yeah.
Facebook, isn't
Ace-
that something that can be done by building that, being a part of the avatar customer base that you're going to reach out to attract through social media to bring?
Can we do away with this avatar bullshit and call it what it is? You
Okay,
know,
what is it?
It's called demographics. Okay, it's avatars bullshit. It's a current hot term that somebody came up with because they didn't like demographics.
The demographics
You
is
gotta know
only
your
one.
demographics.
Demographics is only one part of defining who buys your work, isn't it?
No, it's
What
not.
is I thought avatar is like, you know, you make a symbol of yourself or something. So I'm not sure
No.
I know
Well,
what
there's-
avatar means.
Let's
I
throw the
agree,
word.
Allison.
Let's throw the
Obviously,
word
but-
out. We'll throw the word out. But demographics is only part of.
What do you mean demographics is part? Demographics defines who your customer is. It
But everybody that
defines-
makes over $100,000 isn't going to come buy your work or my work.
Whoa,
There's
whoa,
other
whoa, whoa, whoa.
characteristics.
Demographics is way more than how much money they make.
Well, then what-
Demographics is their age,
Well, but
their-
that,
how much money they make. It is their sexual preference. It is, you know, where they live. Do they live in a city? Do they live in suburbs? Do they live in rural areas? That's demographics. It's all about knowing everything about your customer. It's
And
not
it's
just
also-
income.
There is a
Also,
court, there is
also
a
what
spec-
they buy, like what they buy, are do they prefer brand names? You know, and yeah, you could go really deep into it with the demographics.
So the term avatar in the context of marketing, as I have heard it used, and I have an MBA and a minor in marketing and have been reading marketing stuff for 45 years. The idea is that you define your target market, your target customer very precisely, and anybody that is vaguely related to that is sort of somebody you're going to sell to, but you're marketing to some imaginary, very specific person. I think it's an idiotic idea personally, but there are people who get paid very large amounts of money to construct avatars for people who want to market that way.
Yeah, it's targeting your fucking demographics. I'm sorry, that's exactly what it is.
No, it's more specific than that, Court.
No,
It
it's
is
not.
actually, yeah, it is.
No.
When you say define your customer, when you say you want to define your customer, you're using demographics to define your customer.
No, it's beyond demographics. It's to a point of absurdity. It's saying,
Okay, so what is it?
my avatar, let me give you these. My
Okay.
avatar is a 37-year-old woman with 3 children who drives a BMW.
Fucking
Mine's a
demographics.
That's so
That's
much more
exactly
specific.
demographics.
That's demographics.
Well, but it's much more specific than you
No,
said.
it's not.
No, it's not.
No,
You can use
personification of the demographics.
My avatar is a puppy with glasses on.
Okay, you can
Oh,
That's
different.
the other meaning of avatar.
okay, demographics
That's where I'm confused.
Right.
Well, the word is, there are
Let me
many
ask you
English
this.
words that have multiple meanings, and their different subcultures use it differently. So,
Yeah, it's like
So-
woke.
Besides, of all of us here on this thing, how many of you have ever gone into Facebook and looked in the management component of it and looked at all the different qualities that you can call up to define who your customer is? There's lots and lots and lots and lots of qualities. And none of them, not all of them, have to do with anything to do with money. It has to do with all these different qualities. What kind of magazines do you look at? What kind of shows do you like to go to? What kind of things do you like to do?
That's
Blah, blah, blah.
all
There are
demographics. That's all demographics.
Yep. Yep.
Anything to me, and this is the way I grew up learning it, anything that defines a person or a group of people. It can be income, it can be the cars they drive, it can be the kind of house they live in, it can be the color of house they live in. Anything that defines a set of people is considered demographics. And you can use a single demographic such as income or zip code, or you can start combining demographics just like you were talking about, Frank. You know, your demographic is the lady with 3 kids that drives the BMW. You know, we can take it down further than that she likes to drink Pepsi instead of Coke. And, you know, she drinks box wine instead of bottle wine. You know, you can drill this down as far as you want to go, but it doesn't change the fact that it's demographics. Always has been. You know, we just got somebody came along and said, oh, you know, I want to sell something new and I want to repackage something so I can sell something new. You know,
Yes.
there's your marketing right there. We take and change the name and sell it to something new. You know, it's just
Court, I don't know why this upsets you so much. I mean, that happens, right? It's
Well,
bullshit,
yeah.
but it happens.
when was the
And if
last time
somebody
you,
says, what is an avatar? And I explain what an avatar is, I'm not saying it's not demographics, though I think your definition and my definition of demographics are 90% the same, but not 100.
And I think the bottom line is the definition is less important than the characteristics that define, because the essence of the discussion here is how do you define your customer? So when you reach out, you're targeting as best you can the people that will come buy your work, because that's the whole purpose of doing that. Whether you're bringing them to an art show or you're bringing them to your website, you're trying to find new people that have not seen your work that will come look at what you do and hopefully become a customer. Isn't that what we're doing? Am I missing something?
Well, but you know, the demographic concept is that you can define certain characteristics of your customer that are going to be consistent. And the problem with it, in my mind, is that there are lots of potential customers that are going to be outside of whatever demographic you construct. And there are going to be lots of people within that demographic who aren't customers. That doesn't mean it's useless.
No, but it also
but it's
raises the
inadequate.
question, doesn't it,
Okay,
as to
but
whether
Frank,
you're-
does that also not apply to Avatar?
Of course, I think Avatar's an idiotic idea. I didn't say I agree with it. I'm just
Well, if
saying
they're synonymous, we're
I'm
getting
giving you the
stuck with-
definition, Court. You
If
know,
they're
the fact
synonymous,
that
we're getting
somebody's
stuck on-
marketing to a woman with a BMW and 3 kids is idiotic, in my opinion.
Okay, but we're getting
Unless it's
stuck on the
BMW owners with,
we're getting
you know,
locked
who
up
need
on the
car seats.
terminology
It
rather
should
than
be a
the essence.
minivan with 3 kids.
Well, that it might be a BMW minivan if there is such a
Could
thing.
you guys just hold a second before you guys keep fighting each other? Rewind. Let's start again. I don't think that nobody really knows the demographic of the people that come to the art shows and buy our work. I don't think that nobody really knows, and that's something that I noticed and I've been thinking more about it lately.
That's
I don't
why
Actually,
you
I
need
disagree-
your
I
own
disagree.
mailing list.
I mean,
The
I
artists
feel
I
like
know that are really successful, they know who's buying their work, and that's who they can spot.
No,
them.
wait. Let me, before guys jumping on my throat, I just saying in general, none of the people that put in the show really know the demographic that coming to buy your shows. Everybody's depending, and this is something that keep some promoters or directors keep pushing out, is that we need to send a mailing list, our mailing list to our collectors, and hopefully between the combinations of all the artists mailing lists, enough people come and do crossover to mix everybody work. But most of the artists that they are really loud about it, except for a few of them, they always say that they should be, all advertising should be done by the show, and we should not be doing anything, which I don't agree.
Oh. I disagree. Yeah, that's
another
ridiculous.
thing. Wait, Allison. Another thing that you were saying about the website, I can tell you, for the longest time, I was thinking that it's totally useless to have a website. But the last 2 years, after every single show that I walk disappointed, I get a big sell out of the show later on. It happened in the Square in Belleville. I have 2 good sales after Old Town. Allison wasn't here for one of those, and I was jumping up and down when I came at night, almost at 11 o'clock at night, to sell show up. And the thing is like the stupid thing of giving the business card. And I always say to people, if they don't buy it, I say, here's my business card, maybe not for now, maybe for later. Just think about it. That's the only thing I can ask for you to do. And you have to, don't sound desperate for the sale. You have to be polite about the sale. And I know who's supposed to be the person that buys my work. I got a good idea who's going to buy my work, but I don't know if I'm doing myself enough to bring that person to the shows. I don't know if I'm doing enough to promote the shows. I send an email once a month to everybody. And my fault is that I didn't separate everybody by sake of to target per show. But I don't want the people be coming to that mailing list, because I don't know if that person has multiple homes or not. And I don't know, I just think this more and more. I try to think about what goes behind the doors to make more successful people. More questions I have, more things that come to my mind, what else I can do to improve my sales. And the problem that I think we have as a group is that nobody really wants to share what they're doing to improve the sales. I think that everybody's still worried about me, and they don't see if everybody's doing well at the show, everybody's going to be doing well overall.
I
So-
kind of disagree with that, Oscar. I think a lot of artists help each other and support
Yeah.
sales.
So here's the thing: if I
all the
send out a
time.
mailing, I gave free passes to Milwaukee to 2 of my Chicago customers. They had bought from me in Chicago, and when I saw them in Milwaukee, they had shopping bags in their hands, so they bought from someone else. Great, you know, I'm glad they bought. And if we all send emails out or snail mail, whatever we do, and you know, and our customers come to the show, they might not buy from us, but they might buy from someone else because, you know, theoretically, you know, if they're buying from us, they might be interested in some of the other artists, and that whole cross-pollination is really what's important. And you know, for any show, I wish every artist would at least send out an email to their list, but not everyone even keeps an email list.
No, and let me ask you this,
The
Allison.
ones
when
that
you go
aren't
to-
are doing a disservice to themselves and the other artists. One of the things that just came to mind as you were saying this, Allison, is that if you know that an artist that you highly respect is going to be at a show, you could put an image from their portfolio in your email and say,
I just did that with this last email that went out. The Harmstons are the poster child for Cherry Creek. And so I have a link to their website. So
All that kind of stuff will come back in good karma or whatever to you. I really
But, you know-
appreciate when people do
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
not
because
gonna
not
be-
everyone is gonna
Not about me, but just about someone or about the show.
well,
or
so, but you know, you guys can reach out to each other and say, I'm going to this show. I know you've sold at this show. You have customers. I know you're not going to this show because you didn't get in or whatever. Would you mind sending out to your list on my behalf? And I will send out to my list on your behalf for a show where, you know, we're both at the show. Let's both send to our list and tell our people that the other one's going to be there. You can get the people that you know buy interested in other people, and they can get people they know buy interested in you. You're not going to generate a huge number of sales, but it certainly will help. And you don't know what's going to happen.
Theoretically, that's a
email-
good idea, but I can't see artists being that cooperative.
Well,
Yeah,
my
that's the
email
thing.
is directly from people. Okay, my email list is people that have purchased my work. It doesn't mean that they're going to like Court's work or Ron's work.
No,
But they
No,
might.
And plus, I also, okay, the other part of that, otherwise I would do it. The other part of it is that I always tell people that I will protect their email
yeah.
and that it will only be used for show notices.
well, but okay, but I'm not sure that saying my friend is going to be at this show with me and you might find his work interesting, her work interesting, here's a picture, is in any way breaking that promise.
No, it's not. But if I let someone else use my mailing list,
No,
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I'm
a
not
no.
saying you let somebody else use your mailing list. That's not the same thing. I'm
Yeah,
saying
I
you
thought
send it
if I
out.
wasn't going to be at a show, but my friend was,
you
you
could
were
send on their
saying-
behalf to your list. It's still
Yeah.
coming from you, and you're saying, if I was going to be at, unfortunately, I'm not going to be at this show this year, but a friend of mine is whose work you might find interesting because this is somebody I respect.
okay, that's good.
Got
it.
And, you have to make the value judgment that you're breaking trust with your list, and you don't want to do that. But if you guys support each other, it doesn't hurt. It helps. And I have always told my clients, if you have a person whose work complements yours, like if you make furniture and you have a potter who's a friend whose work you respect, take a picture of their pot on your table and put it on your website with a link to them. You both win.
Yeah.
The pot and the table are on the same picture on two different websites that point at each other. Not only does you have the possibility that somebody who knows the other person's work will come to your website, but Google will actually push you a point or two higher in the algorithm.
Well, I have always said I'm not in competition with anyone but myself
That's,
at
that's why you're
shows.
supposed to be born.
And, I don't get this competitive, don't help anybody else. I mean, if,
Well, isn't
I
there
don't see it. I mean, I
some-
haven't experienced it at shows.
at some point, what about your customers that are getting emails that aren't having anything specific to do with you? They're just getting emails, more emails than they normally would, because you're saying, well, I'm not going to be there, but go see my friend. Do you think at any point in time they're going to get burned out and go like, man, I'm getting tired?
Well, if you send them 24 emails a year like that, yeah, but if you send them 3 or 4, I don't, and especially if there's something, if you're saying, hey, this is a great, I wish I could go to the exhibit at this show, which I've done in the past, but for whatever reason, I'm not there. But here's somebody, if you're going anyway, here's somebody you'd be interested in. I don't think very many people will object to that. And you can certainly, the first time you do it, say, if you object to this, please don't unsubscribe. Just let me know that you didn't like it and I won't do it again.
yeah,
Although if you got rejected from a show, it kind of, then you like, if that's the reason, then I don't know that like if I get rejected from a show, I wouldn't tell my customers. I'd just say, I'm not doing the show this year.
No, you don't have to say I was
Right.
rejected. You just say
I
I'm not
was
doing the show this year.
rejected.
That's why, I mean, I like Bonnie, I'm not going to let anybody else touch my mailing list. I will never give my mailing list to a show. That is a horrible idea. And most artists will not do that. So
Oh,
You've never suggested that any of you do that.
somebody did. Somebody suggested sharing email lists with shows, and that's just not, I don't know. I have seen the crap that shows send out. I've seen it how often they send it out. I mean, I literally got political mailers for a local political race in Houston, Texas, because the Woodlands, somebody in the Woodlands organization took their mailing list that included artists and everybody else. And
That's hideous.
if I had shared my mailing list with them, my customers would be getting emails about some local political race in Houston, Texas.
Let me ask you this.
That
Let me
you
ask
know
you this, Ford.
nothing about.
Go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay, let me ask you this. How many business cards would you say you give out at a show or let get picked up from your booth at a show?
I have started giving out very few business cards. If people are interested in my work, they will come ask me. I will ask them to sign the mailing list, and I will give them either a business card or one of my larger, like 6x9 cards, whatever. I don't know what size they are.
And
one of those
ballpark
cards,
figure at a show, how many of those would you give out or would you give out at a show?
Ron, I would tell you, for me, it's about
How many?
I think it's I give 50 to 100. Sometimes I give 300 in a show. I really don't care. That's advertising to me.
Yeah.
Right. As many as you can give out as possible.
As many as the people ask me, as many they want to. The other thing that I do a lot, a little kid comes to my booth and is looking and looking, and the mom let them look. I usually give them a print for free.
That's
I
nice.
this so. I just think that I don't think about it. It's something you have to do if you're going to stay in business. Like I say, you never know. Last year in Philadelphia, somebody a student from the Med School University of Chicago, she was looking at my work in 57th Street for the longest time, and she saw me in Philadelphia. She bought a piece from me. 4 years later, and you know what? Because she was nice to me when I was in school. You never know. It's all about putting the seed out and see what happens.
That's right. And I think part of the problem of putting the seed out is that a lot of those people are spammers and scammers, and they're going to get your emails, and they will. That's why I think, from my experience,
you just delete it.
I'm not saying how that what to do necessarily with it. It's just, I think that's what happens. Is it's so much of the spam that we get, because it tends to peak after art shows. And these people that are all sending you emails saying, do you want the email list for this upcoming show in Ann Arbor? And we have 2,500 emails or whatever it is. That comes from accessing, because every email, when you think about it, every email at an art show is valid. There's no fake emails being given out by artists that I can think of. So those are all valid. But I think when you go, for example, when you go to if you went to Cherry Creek or the Plaza or Main Street Fort Worth, how much of their success revolves around us doing promotion for the show versus their doing promotion for the show by all means which they do it with you.
I'm going to tell you one thing that resonated with me from the time that Sharon wasn't in the meetings with us, is that if we all do, not just show, if every single artist does send you email blast, every single artist make sure they puts a little ad in Facebook. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It will increase the chances of everybody have a successful show. I think they even what is the photographer name with the kite? I forgot his name all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Evan?
Yeah, Evan
Evan.
Reinheimer, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even him says that. If every single person doesn't have to be a big budget, just a little bit, and you do your email blast, they might not buy from you, but they will help somebody. If you give your business card to somebody, even if you get spam email later on, it's still helping. You have to, I think that the benefit outweighs anything else. If I sell 140 by 60 from my business card once a year, 140 by 60 will pay off for all my business card for the year, and I still will have some profit.
But would you?
I have done it.
Well,
I've done it both ways. I have set business cards in a holder out there, and I have also sat in the back with business cards. And if people want one, they come back and ask me, and I give them one.
And that's what I do now.
Or if they're
I
interested,
keep it in the back.
if they're interested, they come back and ask about a business card. It's a good way to start a conversation. Excuse me, start a conversation with them. But
that's the best way to do it, I find out, Court, because those are the people that.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell somebody no. I'm not going to give you a business card. I ask if they want a big one or a little one, and I give it to them, and I get a chance to talk to them. But between me having them come to me to get a business card and me just leaving a stack of business card or artist card out on the front of the cart where people can pick them up, I've seen zero difference between repeat sales, additional sales. I've seen zero difference in either way that I do it.
I've always gotten a good response from people that have picked up my business card. I will always leave them out and let them free feed off them. So I was going to make some other comment. Oh, with my show director's hat on. It's interesting you say that there are so many artists that think that it's all on a show to advertise their participation. And I will agree that it is
before social media.
No, right now.
No, I'm talking about before social media. The shows used to spend money on advertising.
They still do. But
right,
my point is that there are a lot of artists that feel that it's all on the show to advertise, that they shouldn't have to do anything. And I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, it's
because what I want is I want to make sure that I get my customers there, whether they buy from me or Allison. At least they're going to come and they're going to buy from someone. I guess I have always promoted that I'm going to be at a show. if
If
I
you go
was,
to a market where you've never done the show before, not close to one that you've done before, what do you do then?
then I advertise it on Facebook and Instagram. Well, I'm not very good about Instagram, so Facebook.
How's anybody going to find you on Facebook? That would be your customer.
They have no
You play
idea.
with the demographics. You just go to the demographics and
Well, they
you
search for the
find
name of the show.
Also, if you do Instagram, you always attach your name and the show, and then whatever else you think. But those are things you have to, I really cannot tell you, because I cannot tell you 100% sure that something comes from Facebook or something comes out of Instagram. The only thing that I know for sure when I do a show is when I open my tent in the morning, I want to make sure that I did everything in my power to have a successful show. So when I'm done with the show, if the show didn't work out, I don't have to be blaming or questioning my decisions or not. If the show didn't work out, it's not my market. Fine, move on. I don't
Well,
have
if
to
you
be
go-
second guessing if I did this or didn't do that.
But if you go to a new
So I
market,
do everything.
if you go to a
everything
new
that I can
market, how do you not ask your customers that buy from you or the people that you spend time talking with how they found out about the show?
You always do. They always
Yeah.
they would tell you. I always come to the show every year. Oh, they ask you how you find out about the show. I was just visiting. I saw an email. I saw an advertising or something. But more important, when I find out myself that I comparing to what I do with installations and what I do with art shows, I don't ask my clients in the art show what they do for a living. I don't know. I don't ask that. And when I'm in the house hanging the piece, if I go to the house to hang the piece, then I ask them. But sometimes that can help you to tell you who should you be targeting also in the long run. But
Well,
I
would advertise on, well, not advertise, I would post on Facebook, and then people would share the post, people that were in that area. You can get a lot of free advertising, and you can ask people to share it. You never know who it's going to reach.
I would suggest that all of you spend some effort on Instagram if you're not. I think, given that it's visual, it's more valuable than Facebook.
Instagram and I do not get along. I love it.
Well, Barney,
But we
it's a recommendation in general, not for you in particular.
Well,
Yeah,
I know, but
Instagram is-
I want to be really good at Instagram, but for some reason,
I'll help you sometime,
we
Bonnie.
just, oh, I would appreciate that. I
I know
hate
a
that
lot of photographers, and I connect with a lot of photographers, and I have yet, and I mean, across a lot of, and I'm talking about photographers that do art shows, photographers that don't do art shows, photographers in the U.S., photographers outside the U.S. Instagram for photographers is like a key deal, and most of them hate it, and most of them will tell you it doesn't produce any business, and it sucks a lot of time.
Well, okay, but again, the Instagram gives you a relatively small amount of space compared to a large work of photography, and
No, I am talking about photographers. I'm not talking about how the image is seen on Instagram. I am talking about photographers in a variety of areas: commercial photographers, art show photographers, photojournalists, photographers of all kinds that in the US and in parts of England and in some other countries, that the algorithms on Instagram are weighted so strangely that it doesn't matter what you put on there. Who knows who's going to see it? They may or may not be a customer. And there is this mistaken belief that likes, follows translate into dollars.
Well, on Instagram, I'll tag a show and then they'll actually share it. So my post will get out to the people that the show is posting to, if the show is good about using it in the first place. So there is that aspect. I had a necklace that went, I had a piece that went viral, but it was meaningless. I mean, like there's millions of people who liked it or followed whatever. And I looked at some of those people and they all were like cartoon avatars. That's the other way to use the word, right?
Yep.
And like it was meaning. I even got a call from somebody who wanted to sell me something. I don't even know what they want to sell me, but they saw that the piece went viral, and I said it's useless. It's so you know, and that didn't lead to any sales, but also it was kind of weird and creepy. However, tagging shows and having them follow you could be, you know, we don't know how it all comes back to us. It's very hard to get specifics on what is working and what's not. You know, unless you give out a coupon and somebody uses that coupon, that would be a direct way that you would know. But yeah, with Instagram, I know it seems like this vast thing, but so tagging and having them follow you, but also there's a thing called collaboration. And so you could have maybe a show be a collaborator. And I don't know, I haven't really used it much, so I don't know how that pans out yet. But
Can I ask you a question, Allison? Is this going to be your first time at Cherry Creek?
no.
No. Anytime well, even going back to Cherry Creek, what percent of your success there do you think is going to rely on you bringing in customers versus the show bringing in customers, of which a lot of them you've never seen before?
So, okay, really the question would be, what percentage do I sell to either people I know or return customers versus strangers?
Yeah.
More so.
Word it that way. That's great.
Right. I don't know that percentage, because I might only make, you know, 7 to 15 sales, say. I mean, I could have a really good show and only sell 5 things, so it's hard to percentage wise really know. But
Okay, well, if you went to a show then that you'd never done before,
Okay, Allison, dollar wise, if you look at your overall dollars at Cherry Creek, how much of those dollars percentage wise went to somebody that is just somebody that walked up or somebody you've had contact with in the past? I guess for me, that's the easiest way to break it down.
That shouldn't be a hard thing to calculate, Allison, if you've got their names after all.
Right. Yeah, I know I have all the information. But I really don't know what percentage, and it varies wildly. Like some shows, you know, I could send out a mailing and not see any of my customers. So, you know, I guess I can't answer the question right now. In fact, since Eric is studying statistics, I could have him come up with the numbers.
And let me see if I can simplify it. What percent of your success at any show relies on you doing advertising versus the show doing advertising? In general.
All right. In general, I'll say 20%. I'm just throwing that number out.
Is due to you or to the show?
To me.
Okay. So,
but I'm guessing. I'm guessing.
Right. We're not going to hold you to it. But that means majority of the success at the show relies on the show being successful in advertising and promoting by all of its methods. And so if they're
not quite, because if a significant number of the artists at the show are doing what Allison's doing, that's supplementing the show's advertising, even without them spending the money. So
right. And then there's the people out there.
You can't say it's entirely the show's responsibility. If all the artists at a show emailed out before they went to the show, there would probably be more people attending. And
but see, for example, with for a show like Cherry Creek, if there's a lot of artists that go to Cherry Creek in a given year, which just doesn't happen. But if all the artists that go to Cherry Creek that have never done Cherry Creek and there's no other show around there to do, they don't have a mailing list of relevance for Cherry Creek. They can't send anything out.
Ron,
okay.
You guys, you kind of, this is my thinking, and I could be totally wrong in this,
No,
but
we have
you
every
know,
confidence. Come on.
you have to, if I do a show for the first time, I've never been there, my hope is when I send my email, the friends of that person, they might have a friend in that area, and they might tell
Yes.
that person
Yeah,
about that show.
happens.
Yeah.
And
Well-
and I hope that you know, if I'm doing like I don't know how many times this year I send people to Henry Cliff, because when I go to the house, I see the work, and I know that Henry works will fit well in the house. I don't know if they will buy something from him, but that's how I know them. I was joking with Tiffany Brooks yesterday because I was looking for somebody to do wallpaper for one of my clients, and I'm texting her asking her, do you know who you use for wallpaper in Chicago, because I got a client asking for that. And she texts me back, and I asked her how San Diego is going, and she asked me, well, how you know about San Diego? Oh, because one of the other clients told me that you're doing Jimmy Butler's house right now. And you know, you never know. It's just,
Yeah.
you have to have faith that what you do,
Basically,
people like your work, they're going to share with somebody else in the
we
area.
basically have to keep showing up and putting it out there, basically.
But as we
Well,
show up
I
at
will
events,
say,
okay,
I will say that I used to be able to track 20 to 25% of my sales were repeat customers and came from my mailing. That did not take into consideration the people that they told about it, told about me, told about the show, because I would have people say, oh, well, I had to stop at your booth because so-and-so told me you had great work.
Yes.
You know, you never know where they're going to come from.
no, but when we do shows and we sign up and pay the jury fee and we pay the booth fee and we incur the travel expenses to get there, there has to be a basis for that show to work for us. And I don't honestly believe most of the time it's us promoting ourselves. I think it's the show promoting itself, which is why shows like Cherry Creek, St. Louis, Main Street, Fort Worth, Plaza, on and on and on do really great. And why shows out of the box, first year, Belleville, Artisphere in Greenville, South Carolina, work so well is they figured out and copied or whatever they did to make it work, to bring in people that buy art in quantity of all different kinds, to where those shows work almost every year. They have great corporate sponsorship. It's just a win-win-win. And then there's all these other shows that just struggle, and we show up and we don't have a good enough show. So we scratch it off the list and we'll go find another one. We'll try it next year. But why is it that those shows can't be prompted to figure it out better? Because there's gotta be.
So this is the wrong audience for that question, Ron, isn't it?
No, it isn't, because
What?
all of us, if we work with promoters, if we're willing to not bitch at them and not insult them, but to say, look, I do all these other shows, they work well. They have ways of accomplishing promotion. Isn't that like any business, say a clothing store copying another clothing store that works really well, or a coffee shop copying to a good extent what Starbucks does, because their model works better. They figured out promotion of the event. But a lot of these shows don't. They have no clue. And when you talk to them, they're like, oh, well, I never thought about that.
But
One of the problems is, well, there's two issues. One is shows have the director's turnover, and there's no
Continuity.
There's no continuity. The institutional knowledge does not get passed on, and that is the current and the past show director's fault for not doing that. And in a lot of cases, that happens because it's never happened before. They don't know they need to do it. That's just always gone. Now then, the other thing is, in a few cases, and those, unfortunately, those cases are starting to get, that percentage is creeping up. you have show directors with attitudes, and they don't want help. They know what they're doing.
Yes.
And a lot of these show directors are coming from event backgrounds, and they've done events. They've never done an art show, but they've done events, and by God, they pulled off successful events, and they can pull off a successful art show, and they're wrong.
And you pointed out about the plaza, right? What's going to happen with the plaza?
All right. So here's what's going on right now. I will tell you that I am working with a show director and another artist. I'm back on the NAIA board. We are working to revise and put together help for show directors. And something that has been missing in everything that NAIA has done is, what we're doing is we're taking the approach and that it's sales. It's about artist sales. That's what it's about. Shows are about artist sales. Okay, that should be, if not their top priority, it should be no lower than second.
Yep.
Right. And I would agree with
agree.
that, because to me, the primary reason that's so important is
we
because
all know that, but the shows
no,
don't know that.
what we need to know is that, and the shows need to understand, is that's because the patrons were told about the event, that wanted to buy art, they came and they bought. That's what gave us the sales. Our sales don't happen in a vacuum. It happens because people come to buy art.
Right. We know that. But the show, there is a huge, Ron, you mentioned it earlier. I've done 3 shows this year.
All right.
2 had brand new show directors.
Yeah.
Plaza is going to have a brand new show director. So what we're doing is we're trying to get to those new show directors. And the very first piece of information we're going to put in front of them, and it's going to be repeated in every other piece of information we give them as a priority: artist sales. I went through a book that Carol Swayze did several years ago. That was a guide for show directors. It's great. It's a great book. It's dated. It needs to be updated. But you know what I found? It didn't talk about how important artist sales were a paragraph in the middle of the freaking book.
Wow.
That should have been the very first page of the book. Okay? We know that. And we're going to put it on the first page of the book. And we're going to start pushing that out to show directors. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen this month. It's not going to happen next month. We're hoping that we're going to be able to start pushing some stuff out this fall. When show directors have slow times.
Court, I want to add. Court, I want to just add to that. Not all shows understand the, plight of jewelers and protocols for jewelry. I know there have been changes over the years, like not putting, like if you have a car, if you have a pass on your car, that it shouldn't say jewelry. But also you don't want, somebody saying, hey, did you sell a lot of jewelry today? And because other people can hear. Anyway, there was a theft at Old Town, and
Allison, I understand that. And what you have to do is, you got basically 8 or 9 people that are semi-active in this organization. 8 or 9 people that are semi-active.
I'm not telling the NAIA to do this. It's actually something that I was thinking of working on after the shows are over. And if that's something that, if shows would be open to these jewelry protocols for jewelry, because it's not taken into consideration.
One of the things we're looking at, and I brought it up, and Oscar, you're partially responsible for this, is one of the things we want to do is to get a group of artists together, 5 to 7 artists in every medium, and look at the existing criteria, rules, whatever you want to call it, for that medium that shows use, and redo those. And so
count me in.
Yeah.
Me too.
So things like you know, so that's kind of one aspect. But if there are specific issues that shows need to address with that medium, and Allison, everything you brought up is great, and it would fit directly in there. What we're trying to do is get each medium to provide input that as NAIA we can put on a website and say, here, these are the best practices for dealing with these. The problem is NAIA did that and it hasn't been updated in years. And
well, we did it back with the NAIA back in what, 2006 or something too.
yeah, no, I'm
Carol,
saying it hasn't been done since then.
No, because Carol did it.
In
She did it.
2015.
Yeah, we did it in
2015.
2006.
So
or
we
7,
need to, all that stuff needs to desperately be updated. You know, we need to talk about the issues specific to photography and metal prints. And we need to talk about issues, you know, with jewelers. And then we need to not just jurying in and what rules you're going to have, but we also need to branch out, and especially with jewelry. And, you know, I'm not familiar with other mediums that have needs that are specific to that medium. We want to make sure that we look at those needs for those artists in that medium and make sure that shows understand them. You know?
Yep.
You know, another thing that everybody keeps forgetting when talk about is that a show can do everything right by the book and still fail if the community is not supporting the area. You cannot put it, you cannot have a show where the community doesn't support the area or doesn't have the income for a certain part. Probably something that Ron is mentioning, but the way I say it, I would say it better is when after during the show, even you want to have a mix of things in the show, you should really tell artists or the director should be aware if that is going to be a sellable item in where they're going to be. Because I don't want to drive.
Wait. The thing is, most directors would look at my work and say, "Oh, I don't think we could sell this," you know,
No. I don't say that way. I don't take it that way, Allison. I'm saying
okay,
that you have an idea or the style that's appealing to the community. Doesn't mean like if you have an area that's extremely tend to buy more, and this is something that directors need to pay attention what is selling. Once again, what Ron is saying, it's like if you only see things buying traditional work, traditional jewelry, traditional woodworking, they should probably cater more to those type of artists and put it in the description of the SAP. What is sold the most in this show is this type of work. Be aware of that. If you apply to get in, you get in, but go with low expectations. But I don't know if they're going to do it or not. I don't know if it's a good idea or not.
There's no way. I don't think there's any way to do that.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't like
I know, but it's something that, you know, I learned.
Because how would Oscar, how would somebody, because there's artwork that people out there, the buying public, might not know about, that it exists in the first place. So if they're not exposed to it, how would they know if they like it in the first place? So that's the issue there. You're basically curating a show towards what you think the buyers might want, but the buyers might not know what they want because they might, you know, we all haven't seen everything. And so, but even with like conservative, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, I don't say not to invite any artist, it's still whatever, but what they should put in there in the SAP place and the application, this is what mostly sells in the area.
How do
Just
they know
to have an idea, if you're doing the show for the first time.
There's no way for a show to know that.
Right. The show would have to do.
They should be able to know if they, you know.
No.
Oscar, the show would have to do like a research project to find out what's selling, because, you know, we're not filling out surveys, you know, with our price point and what range sold.
I don't say,
You know-
I just going like a director, most of the good directors, when they finish the show, the last 2 hours of the show, they go around asking how the show went, how you show. If people say it was good, they don't have to say numbers or anything like that. The show went good for you. Yeah,
it's anecdotal without the numbers. Somebody could have a great show and make $3,000, where for somebody else that's a lousy show. So it's
I
too
understand
anecdotal.
that, but I'm not saying the opposite of that. But what are you trying to direct? You need to just find out. Okay, this artist said they have a good show, this type of work. Or if they keep saying the same type of work, they can have an idea. You know, just put an idea what before a person go to the show, have an idea what tend to sell the most. Doesn't mean that's going to happen, but at least you have a better judgment.
What I would do, Oscar, is if I'm looking for a new show, I would look at the artists that participated in previous years. Hopefully it would be on their website, and I would judge it from that more than.
I can tell you that really didn't help me in tablet.
Well, here's what I've started doing. I have started, when I have a good show, I've started going around and talking to artists and finding other artists that have had good shows as well. And you do that across 4 or 5 shows, and you start seeing the same artists or same kind of artists having good shows that you do. And then you go and talk to them and go, okay, you know, what shows have been best for you? But, you know, asking a show to tell you what sells best there is, there's no way to track it, and you just can't do it. So,
but what Allison said, I think, was right on point too, though. It's that when people use the word, oh, I had a good show, or I did okay, or I did really good, that's not a constant. That's not across all people. So somebody could be local, sleep in their own bed. They could do $1,000 and they, oh, I had a great show. And you
right.
$1,000. I drove, you know, my expenses that would barely cover my expenses. That's not a good show. And part of this is, to me, shows are supposed to pay attention to, like, by walking the show, seeing what's selling. Big pieces, small pieces, what kind of work, and jewelry is hard to tell because people often wear it or it's in their purse. But photography, ceramics, glass, woodworking is often being carried by the people. Like Oscar was saying in the last few hours of the show, see what yourself. Don't let us tell you what worked. Go see for yourself what's working, what's not working. Because if a show ends up, in my opinion, if a show ends up with a very small segment of the art medium selling, that show's in big trouble. They've got to figure out how to reach out and get more people in with a broader taste, or more tastes in there, so that they can, when they reach out to all these artists, including us, with all of our different mediums, they can realistically say, yeah, it's a good show. You'll do fine, or give us the hope that it will be a good show. And I don't think some of these shows do that. I don't think
a show could promise that.
A show can't promise that.
You can't promise that. They can promise that they're going to do everything they can with their patron base and their sponsors to bring in.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to have a good show.
No, it may not. It may not. But again, if you look at the best shows in the country, top ones, and then also a lot of the middle ones, they figure out how to do it. And but I've done a lot of those shows, and sometimes I have a good show, and sometimes I have a bad show, and I'll go to a show, and sometimes I have a good show, and sometimes. But when it goes beyond us personally, does the show overall do well? And so, for example, is Cherry Creek or St. Louis such a unique universe?
But you cannot say that because there's a lot of people still see around. I know friends that are zero in Cherry Creek. I got friends that zero in St. Louis. I know friends that suck it, and it's the only. I don't know how many friends of mine went for the first time to make a Fort Worth this year, and they was just talking and thinking they're going to make $20,000-$40,000 because of the reputation of the show. And when they went there, they didn't do any better than one of the best shows, and not only even the only show that you think up in Florida compared to Fort Worth is Winter Park. they didn't do any better than Coconut Grove for Boca Museum. They just did what they consider a good show across the board.
But almost
The only
every
guy
artist that I've
who
ever
shows
known in the
the-
23 years I've done art shows wants to do, they want to try Cherry Creek. They want to try Main Street Fort Worth. They want to see how they might be able to do, because those shows have such powerful reputations of being good shows.
That doesn't
So
mean
all
that things
things-
are not changing.
All
And
things
don't
I
being
gotta go. I'll see you
shows that
later.
worth it.
Okay, Court.
All right, Court. Listen, all things being equal, yes, there are successful shows, but they might not be successful for us individually. So
No, but we don't
like-
know that till we get to do them. And a lot of us
Right,
can't
no,
do, right?
that I
Okay.
understand.
And things are slowing down a little bit from what I keep hearing. Just to let you know, Brown, it's not like you was tripping. You told me, Mark Hirsch told me, still work at. We still making money, but it's been really hard to make the money.
Right.
You know,
Well,
it's really, and I just comparing, Allison, just to make this clear, I just comparing to, like I say, a painter was doing $30,000 in January, February, and March, and then now it's only selling $50,000. That's still good money, but they're not making as good as 3 months ago. That's what I'm saying.
right.
So
Which I don't
things are
understand.
slowing
I don't
down a
understand
little.
why. Like I don't understand logically why that may or may not be happening, because you know the people who buy our work, they've done well over the last couple of years. So
It is. I really don't know. I just going from what I keep saying. There's a lot of things going on there. There could be a lot of factors going right now. And
Mhm.
one thing that I noticed was that I went to Costco, and you know those plastic barriers they used to have in there in the cashier, they're not there anymore. So I think that things are going back to what it was pre-pandemic, and I think that we need to adjust. That's all.
but it
So-
doesn't logically make sense as far as why people are buying more or less. You're saying they were only buying because of the pandemic? Is that
No,
what
I
you're-
think that people didn't was traveling that much. I think that people didn't have the credit card interest low enough that they can put stuff in the credit card and split up in a couple of months. They have money from the pandemic that they didn't use, because most of the people that buy big ticket items, they really didn't need the money extra from the pandemic. And
Mhm.
let's just be honest about it, you know.
But see,
Right.
I have this feeling that the top shows in the country, or the cities with really strong demographics, are not experiencing this to the extent that we are seeing at a lot of the shows that we're doing, because we're doing second and third tier shows. We're not doing top tier shows for the most part. So
It's
when
just
we
that
go up to
I just-
57th Street in Chicago, that's not one of the top shows in the country. And it was surprising, I
No,
think, for both of us to see such a reduction in people coming to the show and buying art, right?
Yeah, but Old Town was not even, for me, Old Town I was feeling the same at 57th Street. I didn't, honestly, and I blame that to be a local show. So,
But
I don't know.
Oscar, if it was not 55 degrees and rainy, the Sunday might have been really good. I mean, we have no idea.
It might have, but there's another factor I think that it affects Old Town, which is what you were talking about, right? Old Town?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that for so many years, we were told it was open, but it was grandfathered. And so for a lot of years, people gave up applying. And the same artists were going to the show every year. And then it started, 20% of our booth spots are open. Then 2 years later, it was 40% of our booth spots are open. Well, why are they opening the booth spots other than sales are dropping, artists are leaving, patrons, which means patrons are leaving. And so then you get into
Where
that
did you?
Oh,
So I'm
this was-
confused. I don't
this was-
understand what you're saying.
For years, when I started doing shows, Old Town
their prospectus that came out said all booth spots are open. There was no grandfathering of the show, but in reality,
Which is not true.
it's not true.
Same
And
with Krazel.
Pardon?
Same with Krazel.
Same with Krazel. They didn't tell us. So when the booth spots start opening in larger quantities, besides identifying the fact that they've been lying to us, is that why are those booth spots opening? It's probably because artists are leaving because they've tapped out. And then the show has to reach out to those people that used to come to the show and tell them, well, we've got new artists, come see the show again. Because over a 2-year period, they went from 20%, they went from basically grandfathered to 20% open to 40% open. I have no idea what they're at right now, but that's probably because patrons have turned away. So now it's like any store.
Well, where are you reading these numbers? That's what I'm curious about.
They sent out emails about it, right? They sent out emails that said, a reminder, 20% of our booth spots are open. And 2 years later, it was, remember, 40% of our booth spots are open. That came from the show itself. But their prospectus every year said all the booth spots were open. There was no grandfathering. Same with Krazel, as Larry said.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Well, but it's the reality of what happened out there.
Yeah, that I know that from Old Town. They used to be grandfather and they only will have like a 1 or 2 spot for photographers, and it was like everybody fighting for that spot.
That's right.
Because the show has that much reputation, everybody wants to be there. And you have to wait for somebody to die to get into the show.
That's right. That's right. And so if an artist turns away, why are they turning away? Why did those booth spots open up? And I don't think it was because they changed their jury concept. It's just because artists tapped out and they weren't making the sales and they left. Okay, but if that meant the patrons were turning away because they were seeing the same artist every year and they bought from those artists and they weren't seeing anything different, that's death for the show. And it's death for the show going forward.
And
So now
Camille from
Coconut
Grove and a podcast, she say even if she likes to move artists around, even if they get in every year, because she doesn't want the show to look the same every year. You know, the artist going to be in that spot every year. She'd rather move the artist just to make it look fresh. So, you know.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
I do.
You know,
I do.
You know.
Okay. But let me ask you each then, if you were one of the best-selling artists on this coming year, and then you got juried out because she was mixing things up and changing things around, you're okay with that?
That's not what he
I
said.
have to.
No, but I think
Right.
that's what she's saying. She's going to mix
That's
it
not
up,
what
change it around
Oscar
so it
said.
looks fresh. Which
No.
means
No.
Meaning,
What she
no.
say-
He means
She's
Go ahead,
changing
Oscar.
the placement of the booths of the artists that were that juried in. So instead of being on the corner of First and Main, you're now on the corner of Third and whatever.
and does that make sense if your patrons come back
Yes.
and buy from you, that you're not there anymore? Because the first place they're going to look, you're not there. So they're going to have to either walk the show, read the prospectus, read where the artists are.
no. They can if they're looking for you, they'll find you. Plus,
Yeah.
you should have sent them out an email anyway.
The main thing you have to-
Three Rivers used to have a same issue where the award winners always got to choose their spaces, so they took the same space. So all the corner spaces were the same year after year. And I've seen years ago, I saw people turn away because they thought it was the same show they saw the year before.
You don't think that's a good thing then? You would say switch them around?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to switch people around. You have to.
I think that's going to depend on the show because, I mean, Comic-Con, there are some booths that they're always in that same spot each year. And people know that and go there and look. You know, it's like, that's where you go to look for somebody, and they do have it divided up into sections. But that's a successful thing for them. Some things won't fit anywhere else. So it has to be in certain spots.
Now, a little caveat about that is that Camille can get away with that because the layout of the Coconut Grove is a good layout. There's no dead ends on that show. I would not be doing that to a show where they have dead ends. Like if a show have street that people don't walk, that would be really bad because you'll be really pissed off. So assuming the show has a good
Right.
layout, from they move you a block away, it doesn't mean that you might be in the same area, but you don't want to have the same spot in the year before.
Man, but I remember when from the years that I did Coconut Grove, there were a lot of places you could have gotten moved to where your sales would plummet big time just because of the location. So if all booth spots have the same draw of people, then I would say that approach has got a lot of merit to it. But short of that, you can do really well one year and the next year you can get totally screwed because you're in a spot where you're going to get maybe a third of the traffic.
Well,
And-
no show should have bad spots. I mean,
but they do. Absolutely
but-
right. They shouldn't, but they do.
but they
Absolutely
definitely
do.
shouldn't.
How many shows have you ever done that didn't have bad spots in it? Shit, my list is long.
I think that, and so very few shows that you can say that that's the case. The other thing that you keep mentioning, Ron, is that top shows. The problem is everybody's applying to the top shows, and last time I checked, I could count with my hands all the top shows. Maybe you can push it to 20 if you really being generous about it. But there's not that many shows, and there's 1,000 artists, right? And all 1,000 artists applying to dub shows. I don't consider myself one of the best photographers in the market from the art show. I really don't. So chances of me getting to maybe 3 or 4, even 2 of the top 10 shows, I feel really lucky with that. But I don't.
The sad thing about that, Oscar, for you, for me, for every artist that is out there in the art show world, our fate isn't determined by the public. And that's ridiculous because without the public, there are no art shows. This whole thing goes away.
But that's the system that we have, so we have to play by the rules. This year,
but we can try to change the landscape, can't we? By talking with promoters, Court with his program, if he can help convince people to somehow, some way, get the voice of the patrons involved. Because if it doesn't do it, then we're just trying to survive in one of the worst business models around, which is we can do great. Nobody pays attention to that. And the patrons who like to come and spend a lot of money on artwork, nobody's paying attention to them. And that's the killer. Not us personally as artists, the patrons. Nobody pays attention to what they buy. Why do promoters think they're going to keep coming back to the show?
I don't know, but I was telling you this. I set up my booth my booth shot used to be like as close as I was set up in the show. I took 2 weeks ago. I took my time to set it up, the cookie cutter booth shot for the booth shot because I needed to apply to all the shows in Florida now.
Yeah.
So I put the booth in my garage, put it in a U shape, photograph it, and there you go, and see what happens. No pre-bed, no nothing, because that's what the jurors want. And some people think that's not important, or people think it's important. So I don't know who's the person judging me. So I need to do it for the volume of people they believe that way instead of what I think it should be. So I'm working with the flow or the hand that I'm given. And I don't necessarily have to like it, but that's how things are. There's a lot of things in the show business I don't like. And I just wonder what changes they're doing about photography now with metal prints, because it's my fault that people are talking about now also that. So I would talk to Cora about that later on. Don't look at me like that, Larry.
Well, it's because you're talking too much.
Oh.
Oh, ow. Ow. Oh, pain.
Out of sight, out of mind.
That hurts.
Well, but if the concept of having an artist advisory board is going to be real, and I'd love to see it how I'd love to see it come to fruition with shows, that they realize maybe we need some help from artists because they do shows all over the country. They run into the same issues that we do at our little show here, our personal event, but they see different ways that these things are handled. And let's try as a business to say, what can we learn from these, what artists see elsewhere, and make it better? Because if they can get better, they don't have to all become the Cherry Creek or St. Louis or Main Street. They can just become stronger shows, which then gives us more options, and it gives the patrons the ability to buy art of all different kinds in all different markets. Which is what we want. When we go to a show in bumfuck Missouri, we're hoping that we have customers there if we've never done anything nearby there, and that the show will bring them to us. I think fundamentally that's what we believe. We have confidence.
And I agree with you. And then you basically, I was disappointed with Island Square because it's my first time that I've been there and I only make my average sales. But in retrospective, now that I think about it, you know, maybe I should plan and if I get in again, I'll see if I can build it from there. But I couldn't tell you Tablet Studio I would never do again in my lifetime.
Now, which show is that?
Tablet Studio I will not touch again.
Yeah, no.
You know, not even you know, even they can give me for free and I'll still want to go.
No, and I think your experience is mimicked or mirrored by so many artists that I've known that have done Talbot Street, including my own over the years, is they don't have it figured out. They don't know what they're doing well enough to make it work for artists from all over the country. So then if it becomes basically local artists, and then it's failed even more on a whole nother level, because that's not for us. I don't want to go to a show that's just local artists. They can keep that.
Yeah, and I got a lot of friends that are doing the show, but I also had a lot of friends that told me not to touch the show. But I believe that you have to try it at least once to make sure there's your own experience to determine.
Right, exactly.
I thought that for me, in retrospective, I'd rather go to Lincoln, Nebraska that weekend than go to Tablet Studio again. That's
good choice. Yeah, I would too. I would too.
You know.
But see, this is a lot of the shows. Quincy, Illinois is facing, that I just did this last weekend. They're facing a lot of these same things too. They're nice people, really good people to talk to. You want to try to work with them. And they have, again, so many communities that have art shows in their area, but they just think their vision is like, well, you know, our community here, it's like, well, your community isn't the biggest community in the whole world. And if you just, when they bought all the art they want, your show's going to go down the toilet because there's nobody else to buy art. You need to bring people in. All the top shows, anything close to the top show in the country, draws in people from outside their area, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, there's something else. There's something else that the top shows do or have done. You know, if they've been around for 30 plus years, they have their reputation, and that in itself is a form of, you know, advertising. I mean, I've been to certain shows where, you know, people say, well, you know, I've heard this is a good, like, it's, let's see, it's almost pre-edited. So when the customer comes in, it's validated. That's the word I'm thinking of. It's validated. So if they buy something there, they're buying something good, no matter what it is at that show. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. I think when I started doing art shows, that was the attitude that I got from people for Ann Arbor. They would go like, oh, well, we're not going to make a big purchase until we've been to Ann Arbor and see what they have. Because, well, it was like 4 shows combined on that weekend. And they'd go up for 3 or 4 days and stay in motels. And they'd spend a lot of money to go look at all those artists and all those shows, and they'd buy big pieces of art.
And it's still to this day, some people only go to the regional show from Ann Arbor. They don't touch the other shows.
Yeah, so, I agree. Yeah. But see, that shows me, that shows that those shows know how to make it work. They have, and even if it's not perfect, it's way better than 90+% of the shows that are out there. So if shows could just step back, control their egos, and say, let's look at what all these other shows do. how they do it, how they get corporate sponsorship in, how they use that corporate sponsorship to promote the show, how they use social media to promote the show, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of them could make a huge difference if they treated it like a business and were creative and constructive with it. But so many of these shows don't have that attitude. It's like, well, we'll hold our event and we'll make some money and blah, 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 blah. And Quincy was down from probably 110, 120 artists down to 68 artists. So they're sinking. Nice as the people are, they're not making it work. And when you walk, and I told them, 4 of the different staff members, just walk the show in the afternoon. See anybody carrying any artwork? Nope. So how can you don't need us to tell you it's not working. You can see it for yourself.
I just, I just want more solid visuals. Because our medium allows me to do more shows. So I don't need to be doing all 8 shows. So if I do a bunch of B shows because of the volume, I will be making the same amount of money just for volume of decent shows. And the problem that I find myself right now, I think there's less solid B shows than anything else. I think that most of the shows are going down to a C level.
Yeah.
And that's scary because you can keep seeing the movement going down, and I don't know I don't know if my work sucks or the people are not coming in, because you cannot.
It's hard to read.
Before the thing that I saw myself, before I went in here, I seen a post about a person saying that they won an award and everything else, they have a great show. If I was doing that or saying that, they said that I'm bragging. So now I am in the situation I want to ask anybody about how the show is going for some people. Because, I'm bragging or questioning or want to know more than what I should know, than I want to share with me.
Right.
So,
and we both know artists. And we both know artists that can have one customer come in and make a huge difference in their show, and they'll conclude it's a good show, but it's not.
But it doesn't happen every week.
Exactly. Or every year, even in that show. If it doesn't happen next year, do you come back because you only have one customer that made your show?
This is when one of my friends said to me, and he's a painter. He says to me, I have a good show money-wise because I sold a 10,000 painting to one customer. That was my only sale of the weekend, and I would never come back at the show, because if that person was not there, I would have a 0 show. Right. So sometimes how much money you make is not necessarily, at least in my book, it doesn't determine if a good show or not. To me, is how many people are buying my prints, how many total sales I have, how many hits I have.
The volume, right?
The volume, because that's what is going to determine if the show has potential to become better. Because you only need a couple of $40 print sales to become $1,000 print sales, and now you have a great show. So
and if you have a base of those smaller pieces selling, and then you get 1 or 2 big sales and have a good total for the show, you've got a base that you're working from, and that's powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm paying more attention to that now. I've been paying more attention to that for the longest time, but I just trying to push it more like a business. And I already know, and I talk to this over and over to people, it's like the bare minimum for me to a show right now is $3,000. And the average for a show should be to 5 and 6. A good show, a really good show, should be 7 to 9, because you have to take all the expenses that we have, the cost of the prints, everything, your time, your traveling, you have to count all that in there. And if you don't count all that, you really don't doing a justice to yourself, because when you come home, if you're only making $1,000 a show and your net profit for a show was only $500, but you have to figure out how in the hell, and you only do 3 shows, I cannot live out of $1,500 a month.
No,
I cannot do that.
no.
So-
Well, I don't think most artists can. And the hobbyists and the part-timers, my experience is that most of them never do the math on, okay, I did $1,000 and it cost me $300 for a booth fee and made $25 application fee and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, well, how much did your art cost you?
Who cares
well-
for them? I mean,
Pardon?
if they have a day job, then who cares? They're validated because someone bought their work, and people have different priorities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the thing is like the other thing that what I pay more attention
I
is
can't
to
hear
the
you.
people that do this for a living. This is your only source
Yeah.
of income,
Right.
compared to a person that have another source of income. This is like a supplemental income. But a change show appreciation how you
Thing
do
out.
things.
Does everybody else hear that? Or do you hear Oscar?
No.
He's
I heard
breaking up.
Okay, he is. Okay.
So it's more like people have to understand that people that do this for a living need to make more money, and it comes down to sales. I just
Yes.
and it took me a long time to realize that for me, and since I'm focusing more on that, I'm doing much better. And that's what I still do in the installation, because I know I'm going to have a bad show, and I still have to come up with the money to pay the bills. So I wish that the shows concentrate more in sales, and that's should be the number one thing. And people, it's not just sales that people are making enough sales to support themselves. That would be the main thing,
And I find over the years, we as artists care about patrons. We connect with, they become our followers, our buyers. Patrons are important to us. It's rare that I'm at an art show where I ever get the sense that the art show gives a shit about patrons. They've got other priorities, least of which is, how do the people that come to our show, how are they doing? Are they having a good time? Are they finding art that they want to buy? Are they going to come back next year? Blah, 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 blah. I just don't think it, for so many shows.
I found that certain shows care about all of that.
Certain shows do, but there's a whole lot of them that don't. I don't think. Ask, did Talbot Street give a crap, you think? Who came and bought something?
I don't think so.
57th Street, I
think
don't
so.
think they cared what happened. I don't think Springfield Old Capitol cared what happened. I don't think Lohmeyer cared what happened. And these are just shows I've done in the last 6 weeks. I don't think a lot of those shows care because they're not paying attention. There's no way that they're monitoring what's happening. They don't monitor how the artists are doing. They don't monitor what the patrons are walking out with. I doubt seriously they're going to send them, collecting any information to send them a survey or doing a survey while they're at the show. Do you have a good time? Do you find something, blah, blah, blah. They just don't care. I don't think.
Well, it's 5 o'clock my time. I'm pretty sure you guys are hungry over there.
I should.
You guys
go
do.
too. All right. Well, good
Next week.
conversation, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, I guess everybody left. Ah.